Gracefully and Frankly is made possible by Sierra Sil. You know, if you're looking for relief in your joints, especially your knees, Sierra Sil promises you're going to feel a difference within 14 days of starting or your money back. And research shows that Sierra Sil Joint Formula 14 supports joint cartilage and muscle function. Plus, it's good for a gentle detox.
You can find them at sierrasil.com. Sierra like the mountains, Sil like silicon, and use your code GF will get you 10% off your purchase.
Well, hello from the maternity ward. I'm Erin Davis.
I'm Lisa Brandt. Welcome to episode 58 of Gracefully and Frankly. And yes, apparently babies are born in Siennas now.
It's true. I saw a story on CBC a few days ago about a couple. They were on their way to the hospital, baby number 3. The water breaks right there in the car, and right away this baby is making its appearance. The dad stops the car, jumps out, goes around the other side, puts down his coat, and catches the baby like, I'm not kidding, a football. And so everybody's fine. Little Bessie is doing fine, but guess what they were going to call the baby? They were thinking of it.
She should have called her Sienna and gotten endorsement deals. And come on, she could be the first infant influencer.
That's right. I just love the story.
Yeah.
And as it happens, I saw a picture of it, and it is a dark blue minivan just like ours. Is there nothing this car can't do? So here I am, set up in the back seat where we were together a couple weeks ago to record this, and you're back at home, and we'll fill everybody in on that. But today's show are, tears and fears.
Why it's good to have a cry at least once a week, if you can muster one up.
Okay, great. Lisa and I have a shared paid friend, and we're going to really delve into therapy this week. And the one place where I was told you should never be offered a tissue. Got an issue? Keep your tissue.
It's all coming up on Gracefully and Frankly, brought to you by Envy Pillow. EnvyPillow.com. Of course, I took mine to Palm Springs. I'm so glad I did. It made all the difference in the world. Almost every morning, Erin, you would say to me, your hair still looks good, because the Envy Pillow doesn't mess up your hair, but it does so much more than that. It's support for my neck, which is so important. I don't wake up with squish face, which is another important thing, because it's the only certified anti-aging pillow on the market. And that's one of the reasons we love it.
Find out more at envypillow.com and use the code GF to get 10% off. May also be good for crying into. Well, here we are in the Sienna minivan for the second last time. You're at home though, Lisa.
Yes, I am at home. Back at home in my little purpose-built booth for this kind of thing.
Is Cuddles at your feet your black cat?
No, he's not. He doesn't like it. As soon as we get a little bit animated, he's like, I can feel him at the door. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm out.
These two broads is crazy. And we are. As we mentioned in the intro, this is episode 58. As we begin February, I wonder how people's dry January went, if that was a thing for a lot of people. I sure saw enough ads for alcohol-free booze, which really, it defeats the purpose. But anyway.
I saw a lot of memes and posts about this being the 369th day of January, and I think people felt January lasted a long, long time. I don't know if the two are connected, being dry and it seeming like it went on forever, but It's dreary here, though. It's very dreary in Ontario. The sun came out and people were like, what's that giant orb in the sky? So
yeah. And usually, if I recall my Ontario winters, there were a lot of clear, cold days. And so which do you prefer, like -20 with blue skies or -2 with clouds?
You know, I stay in the basement so much, I don't really care. So I'm like, fill your boots. So today I had a little bit of an errand to run. It was slurpy and you needed to use the wipers with the wiper fluid constantly. That's not my idea of a good time, but it was mild. So very cold is not fun in my world. So it's kind of hard to choose.
It's almost like travel. You get what you get and you don't get upset. But honestly, we do get upset. And Lisa, when you got home after a flawless day of travel last week, it was almost like Charles Lindbergh headlines, honestly, because in this day and age of travel, you just don't take anything for granted anymore. So do you want to wrap that up with a bow?
Yeah. It all depends on your definition of flawless because I did lose my preferred seats on my flights because of the cancellations that happened in Palm Springs. They had to put more people on planes, so they brought bigger planes, and that meant people got shoved all over the place. So I ended up in a middle seat, which is the worst. But, well, I guess cargo would be the worst. But the flight took off on time, landed on time, was wonderful as far as, the pilot being communicative and everybody being nice. A priest sat beside me. He was hilarious.
A priest?
Yes, an Anglican priest from Toronto. Nice man. Told me a couple jokes.
Oh, come on. You got to bring it. You got to tell me a priest joke.
Okay, well, there's one he told that I put in my blog. Everybody's on a flight and it hits some turbulence. And one of the passengers noticed that there's a priest on board, and he says, Father, do something religious. And the priest says, okay, I'll take up a collection. So,
Ah!
coming from a priest, it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Did you have turbulence on your flight?
Lots of it.
Oh.
They warned us before we took off there was going to be a lot of it. And yeah, there were a couple times it got really bad. And the priest sort of looked at me and I looked at him and I said, well, you've got something to look forward to. I'm not enjoying this. So anyway, we had a couple of laughs. And his wife's a judge and she was there too talking to me about Italy. And so, you meet nice people. Lady from Hamilton flying on her own for the first time. They were taking up my armrest.
Oh, no, that's not allowed. When you're the middle passenger, it is an unwritten rule, which maybe should be written, that the middle passenger gets the armrests. I mean, it's only humane.
I know. I didn't get one, but that's okay. I just went with it. So that flight was great. The second flight took off a little late, about half an hour we sat in the tarmac. But it's gotten to the point, Erin, where as long as it's going to go and you're going to get where you're going, you just let that stuff go because that's how low the bar is dropped. Just get us where we're going,
Yeah. So that was your second go round because you had, as I'm sure people remember, switched from WestJet, which just let you down hugely, to Air Canada. Now, what about the WestJet flight you gave up? Any progress there at all?
Well, I called them the other day just to follow up on the refund. And they said, we issued the refund a few days ago. And I said, you mean the WestJet certificate? And she said, no, we're giving your money back on the same credit card that you used to book the flight. So I immediately texted our friend Anita and said, our refunds are coming. Yeah, so that's in progress. And now it's just a matter of Air Canada's process for my late bag. But, one of our radio friends, Marty Forbes from Toronto days, and he's out west now.
Yeah.
Posted on Facebook that his flight from Calgary to Edmonton never happened. So he and his wife took a cab and it was almost $800.
Holy.
I mean, it was delayed, and then finally canceled. And it's like, you know what? We can't stand this anymore. We got to get home. They were in Europe. And it's just, none of this is a surprise to people who fly all the time. It's just the way it is right now. So
must have made that cabbie's night, though.
No kidding.
Wow. While we're talking about flying, we got an email from Janice who wanted to know, because we talked about the Palm Springs tramway and that you pushed through different fears to get on the thing. How did you get over your fear of heights, Lisa? Because it's something that still grips a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think it's different for different people getting over it. But I just went up in a balloon for my 50th birthday quite a long time ago. And even though we were quite high up, it was so gentle and so beautiful. Really, I just stopped being afraid of being up in high places. When I was a kid, one of the men who worked for my dad fell 80-something feet and was killed. And, there were all these things around heights that just got to me, and spiders. But Derek narrated a book about spiders too, and you're supposed to expose yourself to them. That's not going to happen.
Oh.
But I think exposing myself to heights, I just kind of forced myself. I thought, this is limiting my fun. There are things that I don't want to do because we have to be up high somewhere. And I'm not about to go on the CN Tower and do that thing where you tether yourself and lean over.
Nope. The skywalk or whatever that is.
Exactly. That just doesn't interest me. And it's not even so much about the heights. It's just, well, it's everything now. But
yeah.
That's all it was. It was the balloon ride. And bad things can still happen in a balloon, but there was just something about it that made it so gentle. And we were still pretty high up, certainly not as high as a plane. But I was looking down. I thought, this is really fascinating. And after that, things changed. I can't explain it.
Ah, I can't believe you took the step to do the balloon ride on your birthday. I mean, birthdays are supposed to be, I guess they can be whatever you want, but for you to push through something for your birthday is, I think, really commendable.
Well, I appreciate that. But what I had wanted to do was skydive. And when we started going and looking into it, Derek went ahead and did it, but there were so many exercises you had to do and put a pack on your back and jump and all this practicing. And I knew my neck wouldn't be able to take it.
Oh,
So that wasn't so much the height. And then it was like, okay, a balloon ride, that'll be gentle. You don't have to take any training or anything. You just learn how to fall out of the sky when it's time. And,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
about it, right?
The thing I found disconcerting about the balloon ride was being taller. My center of gravity is higher. And so the basket only came up to, I would say, just below my navel. So that was disconcerting for me. And I probably had some heels on boots because it was a gorgeous fall day. And I won it. It was a prize in a competition for lip syncing. And so there up I went. I wasn't going to let a free balloon ride go by, as it were. So,
No.
yeah, that's what I found disconcerting. And the landing. The landing is bumpy. You kind of drop and drag while you're upright. It's a little bit like pulling a wagon with no wheels on it once you land on the ground. But I'm glad that it worked out for you.
Well, we had the number 3 landing, which is where you bump a couple times and then it tips over. That was the really hard landing that we had. But the only thing about the balloon ride is that you have to really wait for the weather because we were canceled, I don't know, 5 times before we finally got to go. So you have to know that going in. Like you wake up at 5 in the morning or something, give them a call or, are we good? And they'll say, nope, not going today or whatever.
I like that it's called the number 3 landing because I think I know what the number 2 landing would mean.
Number 3 was everything.
Oh, no. Clean up. Speaking of getting through fears, there are a lot of people. Can you tell I've been binge watching old episodes of Frasier? I'm listening. I'm so enjoying it and missing laughing along with you to the episodes, Lisa.
They're so good.
But shrinks. Let's talk about therapists. Is there a way to shop for shrinks? In your opinion, a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whoever it is that you need to talk to or you want to talk to. And how many visits does it take for you to know it's not a good fit?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because everything is so individualized, whatever you're going to see them for, what you need out of them. You know, I've done it through the employment assistance program at work where they just sort of give you one. And that's how I found this current one and then didn't see him for a year and a half or something and then remembered how great he was and decided to go again. He was just sort of assigned to me through the employee assistance program. I don't know. When my ex-husband and I decided to go for couples therapy.
Why is that funny?
I thought they might actually be having an affair. She loved him so much. Everything that he said, her eyes fluttered and was gold. And everything I said meant that I was a problem. She was so one-sided.
Oh.
I was not happy with her. But we just found her like looking at reviews and stuff. What do you do?
Well, I've only ever had one really bad experience, and that was because I was embarrassed and ashamed. He was recommended to me by our family doctor, and anybody that was recommended to me by this doctor was going to be golden. And it seemed to be okay, but I was trying to lay out some kind of a friendship with him. And I said to him, look, if you ever need tickets to anything or whatever, I can ask around and see if we have any, just to kind of be kind and to offer him something. And he said, is that so I'll like you? And that might have been accurate, and it probably was, and he was probably right. But at the time, I was deeply embarrassed and ashamed, so I didn't go back to him. And then I remember Henry Winkler talking about the best therapist he ever had, where he looked at a picture of her family on the desk or something and said, "So who are these kids? Do you have grandkids?" And she said, "How will you knowing that help me to help you?"
Yeah.
And he was really taken aback. So not to compare myself to Henry Winkler, but I realize in hindsight that he was probably absolutely right. But I have to thank you for connecting me with yours. And I'm reluctant to talk about it. And we don't want this person to get inundated or us to get inundated with requests for him, or we'll never get in with him again.
That's right.
But thank you. He's the perfect fit.
Oh, good. Well, it's funny. I had an appointment with him this week, and we got talking about reputations and different things to do with something else. And
Mhm.
and he said that most of his business, of course, is word of mouth. He's not putting ads in the trades or anything, but it's tricky because sometimes I've had a couple therapists that weren't great over the years, and sometimes you just have to shop for the one that fits you. And so, although I was confident that he was a really great guy who would cut through the crap and see what it was you wanted to talk about or whatever, it's a very intimate individual thing at the same time. So I'm relieved that it worked out, but I knew you'd think he was a great guy. He's a great guy.
He really is. And we had some breakthroughs in the very first, I was going to say episode. Everything's a show with me. No, but in the very first session with him, and I found myself almost welling up at one point, and I didn't cry. Crying is something that I think they're used to, right? Every therapy office I've ever been in has a box of tissues right there. Although they teach you in rehab, when somebody's crying, don't hand them a box of tissues.
Huh.
Have you ever heard this?
No, why?
It's because you're telling them, here, get yourself under control.
Huh. I always thought if somebody handed me a box of tissues, I've cried in every boss's office.
Oh,
I've cried in every therapist's office. And I always thought it was like, hey, you're going to need these because obviously this is emotional for you. I never, ever took it that way. Wow. Interesting.
well, it may be different in a therapist's office because they want you to feel comforted and safe.
Right.
But now I understand why there's that box of free rain ponchos in the corner of his office that I saw on camera too. Oh, okay. I get this. No, but I think that truly is a safe place to cry. But the boss's office, what is worse than crying in front of a boss?
Well, it's funny because we know so much more about crying now. And when I would cry in a boss's office, it was because I was just so worked up about something. And I would point to my eyes and I'd say, when I'm angry or upset, I can't help this leaking that's about to happen. And every single time they would go, oh, okay, because of course, by and large, they were men and they're like, oh no, a woman's crying and I can't buy her flowers because that wouldn't be appropriate. So what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't know what to do. So I would just always explain, like, this is part of what happens when I get angry or when I get upset about something. It's as I'm not having an emotional breakdown or anything right now. It scares some people, especially people who can't cry or are bottled up themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember getting so angry at myself for crying in front of one particular boss, and I had just had it with everything that he was doing to cut me down. And every time I stuck my neck out, he was there with a hatchet.
Oh.
And I'd finally had it, and I started to cry, and I was so mad at myself because in some way I felt like he'd won, like he broke me,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. I think that's why I would give that explanation, just so I was like, you don't have the power. I'm taking the power back. But it does feel vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable feeling. But did you not feel good after, like physically, or not so much?
No, not at
Aw.
all. I was angry with myself.
Aw.
But could you please tell the story, and whether you tell his name or not, of the coworker who was so taken aback by you crying at his harsh words? I just can't stop thinking about this. It's a great story, and it's an awful story if you want to share it.
Well, it came from a good place because it was Brian Linehan.
Ah,
Everybody probably remembers Brian Linehan, City TV, and he, was the interviewer extraordinaire. He had 5 7-minute long questions, and he and I worked together at CFRB. And at the time, there was talk of us becoming an entertainment unit, just Brian and I. I'd been doing entertainment reports, and so Lou Diamond Phillips had come to I'm dropping names like flies.
nah.
Lou Diamond Phillips had come to the radio station, and somebody in our promotion department called me and said, Lou Diamond Phillips is leaving. Go get it. We need a picture for the trades. That was a big deal back then. Get your picture in the trades. And
get your hat with the little press tab and run out there and get them. This is your big chance, Lisa.
Hey, Lou Diamond Phillips, you got a scoop? Anyway, so I run out. She says, Lou, this is Lisa. And, slap our arms around each other and take a picture, and it ends up in the trade magazines. But after we took the picture, I went back to my office where I had work to do, and Brian Linehan stomped after me and came in and said, don't you ever embarrass me like that again. I will shame you, Lisa Brandt. Don't you ever do something like that again. Because Brian was very respectful and serious about who he was interviewing. He felt that I had ambushed him, which I kind of had.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just embarrassed that it was sort of out of his control. And I burst into tears. I idolized Brian Linehan. He was just such a nice man, such a decent man. He knew everybody. And I burst into tears. And he said, oh, Lisa Brandt, you're a married woman. You shouldn't be crying. And I thought, what has that got to do with? Anyway, he said, it's okay. Just don't do it again. And I went, okay, all right. That was the end of that. But yeah, he was really pissed at me. And I can understand why. When you know how wound up he was and how much he put into everything that he did, to have me just sort of jump into his scene there wasn't appreciated. Yeah.
Oh my God, you must have felt a combination of Lucille Ball and Mary Tyler Moore. Like, oh, Rob, and that big ugly Ricky. Those cries.
Oh, Ricky.
Oh, Lisa, you're a married woman. Oh, Lucy, get hold of yourself. Oh my goodness.
We had many moments, Brian and I, and that was the only time he yelled at me. So I'm happy about that.
You came across an article about crying.
Yeah.
And how it's good for us and how we need to do more of it. And while it could be a late New Year's resolution or a lunar New Year's resolution, because that's coming up, can you kind of give us the gist of that article and what you think of it?
Sure. It's this guy in Japan who calls himself a tears teacher, and he teaches workshops and lectures across Japan about crying. And he says that from his work and what he studied, a weekly cry can give you a stress-free life. He says it's better than working out. It's better than therapy. Just having a really good cry. And one of the things he says is, it's not always easy to cry, so put on a movie that makes you cry. I mean, if I needed a good cry, I'd put on A Walk to Remember or Bridges of Madison County, and I'd be done. I don't know. There are people who find it very difficult to cry. I know that I usually have a cry on Fridays because I'm tired through the week.
Oh, okay.
So Friday's my cry day. Friday's the day when I get a little blue about people I've lost or whatever, and I just kind of have a little cry, and it feels really good.
Wow.
But that seems to clear it out. Like for me, a cry seems to clear the pipe of emotions that I've been carrying around.
Interesting. See, I don't cry anymore. I just don't. I think I got all cried out when Lauren died, and it may have just shifted something in me where I'll give you something to cry about. Remember that when your parents would say it? But no, that was something to cry about. So I don't know. Maybe that's another one for the therapist. Just a sec. I was taking notes last week. I'm taking notes again this week. Okay, I'm going to ask about that.
Yeah, that's a good idea to come prepared when you go in. I went this week thinking, what am I going to talk about? And of course, that's when you have the most interesting conversations, when you think there's nothing there. So,
well, you're not Catholic, but confessions like that, you go in there and you go, oh yeah, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. But
right.
That's why I love the story of you and the Anglican priest on the plane and you telling him, well, yeah, you're fine with turbulence. You got something to look forward to. Jesus. I mean, geez. But speaking of planes and crying, that is my most embarrassing cry, I think, was watching Marley and Me on an airplane when you would watch it on the screen in front of you. Oh, spoiler alert, the dog doesn't make it. And I am snuffling and crying, and I've got my hand up to my nose and my face so that I don't look like there's this crazy woman in aisle 14 completely losing it. But no, it's Marley and me. And it's with Jennifer Aniston and Owen Wilson and a dog named, let me think, Marley. And if you don't cry watching that, you need somebody to check your DNR because you ain't living anymore.
That's
That's
right.
one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But again, afterwards, if the embarrassment's gone or whatever, how did you feel?
Like I needed to put my makeup back on.
Okay, the practical. All right, I
You
gotcha.
know. As our therapist would say, Lisa, what did you take away from today?
Oh, yes. What did I take away from today?
Warm fuzzies from talking with my best friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anglican priests can be funny. That's a much more minor one than talking to you. You know, I enjoyed recording in the minivan. I really did.
Good. Well, I got a voice job, not the Band-Aid one. Have you heard about the Band-Aid one yet? Did you get that one?
I
No.
don't think so.
No,
No.
I didn't either. But I got to do one that they were very happy with.
Yay.
Yeah. So minivans, they're not just for driving and giving birth anymore. Have a great week and congratulations on getting this show up on YouTube. That's wonderful.
Yes, now on YouTube, you can click it and just do whatever you do. It's so much easier for some people than going to a podcast hub. So it's all there. It'll be there every week.
Thanks so much to Sierra Sill and, of course, to Envy Pillow. Every day that I wake up with insane hair, I wish I'd brought my pillow. I can't believe I didn't. I'm sorry. I'll never travel without it again. Talk to you here next week.
Bye-bye.